Aren't y'all glad we're getting away from announcements in church? It's only those that have to give the announcements are excited about that, but that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's like stressful. It's painful. It's like an interruption. We talk about God interrupting our program and we interrupt God's. Anyway, I'm glad that we are moving away from that. So, for those of you who have email, make sure you pay attention to your email. Otherwise, you will be out of the loop. So, we got any humble people in the house tonight? Any prideful people in the house tonight? Mm. It's a work in progress. What's that sign that we put up? Pardon our progress. He's still working on me to make me what I ought to be. You know how long took him to create the heaven and the earth? How long did it take him to create man? Oh, nobody knows? Oh, okay. It wasn't a trick question. He created all that in a week. And look, I got a hand back there. He's being polite and all that. But he created all that in a week. And he created us. He puts us on this earth. And then he gives us our entire lives to get in line with him. And he works on us our entire lives. For some people, I mean, think about it. Some of us, we live to however long the Bible says, 70 years or, but in the Old Testament, some of them lived hundreds of years. So imagine if you had a hard-headed follower and you had to work on them for 900 years. And he is so patient, so long-suffering. Think back to last week's lesson on grace, and just look at how long-suffering God is and how patient and willing to endure with all of us. Not some of us, all of us. If you think you got it all together, well, the Lord has a nice little mirror that he likes to put up every so often. So, looking across here, some of you, I can tell where some of you work. I can tell some of you who have money based on what you wear. Some of you who don't have money based on what you wear. I'm joking, I'm kidding. Y'all lighten up. Lighten up. How many of you in here have money tonight? How many of you in here don't have money? I don't care if you have a penny to your name, you got money. Just because, and I've seen people who are wearing clothes, name brand clothes, name brand accessories and apparel, but they don't have the money that would be associated and tied to that apparel. Because a lot of people shop on that thing called credit. And whether it's good or bad, they shop using it. Just because you have something on the outside doesn't mean that on the inside of your bank account there are sufficient funds to supply that. When you get dressed with God, make sure that you don't just, a lot of people come in, sometimes we come in here dressed one way, and I'm not just talking about what we're wearing. I'm talking about covered up, walled up. I've got it all together. But what's on the inside is not a reflection of really what we're depicting on the outside. Some of us go stand in our spiritual mirror on Sunday mornings or Thursday nights or Sunday nights and make sure that we've got certain things in place and got this lock of hair in place and all that, so these blemishes aren't seen and that's not seen and whatever. And it's kind of like if you were there at our last leadership session, some things were communicated in that. And partway through that, I'm telling you, some things just started, it was almost like I was being shot at. Like, Lord, is that me? Lord, I didn't show up for this. Is that me? I didn't realize. I thought I had it all together, and it was kind of like he said, "Here, stand right here. That what you're doing there, what you're covering up, that's what needs to be addressed because that shouldn't be there." If we're not careful, sometimes we won't even realize how we're covering ourselves. It becomes second nature. It becomes second nature to hide. It's second nature, or our flesh's nature, to hide our feelings. It's flesh's nature, well, for some anyway, not all people. Some put their feelings out there, some hide them, depending on what they are. But I believe that every human being can have the tendency to hide deep things going on inside. It's flesh's nature to hide hurt. It's flesh's nature to hide pain. You don't put that out there for people to see. You cover it up. It's like a broken leg. You break your leg, you cover it up, and of course you put a cast and all this so that it can be reset. But you don't get some little, your leg isn't just hanging out there. You've got that thing bandaged thick. So that when people see, that means don't come within 6 feet of my leg because it's broken. Sometimes we come to church and we act like that with God. We get ourselves so covered up that we can't be open before Him, open before His people, open before His body. It's important what you wear. Some people in here, you could tell where they come from. I can tell your nationality by looking at you. All of you are from the great United States of America. But with some people, yes, you go out in society, you can tell where people come from because they wear clothes that are tied to from their background. If you're wearing clothing tonight from another place, some of you just because you like it or whatever. If we had a multicultural service or something, some might go out and buy something. It's not necessarily where you're from, but there are some people every day, they wear the clothes that represent their background, that represent their history. There are some people you walk around, you can tell, again, based on what they're wearing, if they're wealthy. You can also tell people that are impoverished. And looking across here, nobody here is, all of you look beautiful tonight. You're dressed wonderfully. Whether you came from work or wherever you came from, all of you are dressed wonderfully. Nobody's out of place. You got every wrinkle in line and all that. So you look good. For some people, you can tell what they like or their focus as far as entertainment or, for example, sports. I don't see, and I'm glad we don't have the whole banter back and forth. Some churches, people wear their sports team to church on Sunday, and you got this team over here, and you got their arch rival sitting across the aisle, and they got the church divided because of that. So everybody in here is a Baltimore Ravens fan, so I'm glad we're all in unity and the same mindset. The bond of unity, I feel it. The bond of unity. I'm sorry, I'm picking. I know I am. I did it on purpose. It works. So there are things that we wear that depict what's going on. For instance, most of you in here have something on that depict what's going on in our world right now. You got a face mask on, and it's an indication of what's going on around you. The thing that has to happen as we walk with God is God desires for us to be clothed in a certain manner. God desires to clothe us, not us clothe ourselves. The Bible says that our righteousness are as filthy rags, not just a garment, but as rags, tattered rags, torn rags. We know that Adam and Eve, when they sinned in the garden, they attempted to cover themselves. They did not attempt to clothe themselves. They attempted to cover, just to cover their shame, their nakedness, and we know that they did an insufficient job. Throughout the Bible, you find that there are different garments for various things, various occasions. You find that widows dressed in a certain manner. So when you walk throughout society, you could tell who a widow was. For the priests in the tabernacle, you knew who was a priest, and sometimes they changed their garments based on the function, the role that they were serving within the tabernacle. So, and then they also would wear, at times of fasting, they would wear sackcloth. You read about it in Jonah. Jonah went to warn the people of Nineveh that the Lord was going to destroy them. And after that warning, the Bible says the king put aside his garments, put aside his robe, and put on sackcloth to fast and pray so that they would not be destroyed. If the king of Nineveh could humble himself, put away his riches and his royalty so that there could be a change not just for himself but for his nation, I'm willing to change whatever I've got to change. I'm willing to lay aside any fame, anything I have, anything I don't have, anything that I desire, so that I can have what God would have for me. I don't believe that God didn't want to destroy Nineveh. If he wanted to destroy Nineveh, he wouldn't have sent Jonah. So the king was willing to lay all that aside. And then further, he gave out that decree, and everything and everybody fasted. Everybody fasted. Young and old, everybody fasted. And they put on an attire that showed that they were fasting. They put on sackcloth. Sackcloth is not comfortable. I don't see anybody in here clothed with sackcloth. I'm not signing up to, even in fasting, Lord, if I could just wear what I've got, I'm satisfied with that. If I need to put it on, so be it. But that was to show God, you know what I have, all of the materials in this life that I have don't mean anything. I separate myself from all of that so that I could have whatever it is that you desire to give me. You know, I found, and of course, the way that fasting talks about it, it's from food. But you know what? You can fast from food, but overindulge in a whole bunch of other things that really negate the point of fasting. Well, I'm not going to fast, but I'm going to go spend hours doing this or whatever. You know, all you're doing is taking part in a little diet, maybe losing some weight, unless you, after you're done fasting, go pack the pounds back on. But that can happen with fasting. In Joshua, it talked about the inhabitants of Gibeon. When Israel came into the promised land, of course, they came there to conquer. They came there because that land was promised to them. If God promises you something, don't settle for half of it. Go get the whole thing. Pursue after the whole thing. And those in Gibeon knew that Israel was there, that they were there to take over. And they decided, we don't want to be destroyed. So they decided to make a league with the Israelites. In making this league, they made themselves to appear poor. They got some old wineskins. They got some old moldy bread. The Bible says they got some old garments to put on to make like they did not have it all together. And they presented themselves to Joshua and the leaders of Israel. And they believed the story. I mean, I find it hard not to believe that. And they believed it, and they made a league with the inhabitants of Gibeon. But once they found out who they really were, these people were, they had it going on. They had their own city. They had their own place. They weren't impoverished. They weren't poor. And so what they did was they said, fine, since we made a league with you, they said, we're not going to kill you. We're just going to make you our bondservants. You're going to serve us. You're going to go get the water. You're going to get the wood. You're going to get everything that we need for the tabernacle. So you got garments of deception. Isaiah 61 talks about the garments of praise that you put on for the spirit of heaviness. When you put on the garment of praise, that doesn't have to be just on Sunday morning with the right beat and the right tempo. You can put the garment of praise on at any point in time that you desire to. You don't have to live your day without praise. But each and every day you can wear praise. Keep it on. You can show forth the praises of God. Hey, if the heavens declare his glory, if the earth shows it and the sky shows his power, how much more as his children can we declare his greatness and his glory by wearing praise? And then the one that we all like to put on at least once a year, starting next week. In Ephesians chapter 6, put on the armor of God. I know nobody in here puts on garments of deception and all that kind of stuff, but put on the armor. Put on the, in Ephesians it says, put on the whole armor of God. Don't go to battle with just a sword and think that you're going to get it done. Make sure you've got a helmet of salvation. Make sure you've got the breastplate of righteousness. You know that any good fighter is looking for an opening. Looking for you not to have on that breastplate of righteousness. You say, well, I've got faith. You got to have righteousness too. Take the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand, not just part of the armor. I found once I was doing something and was working with some people and found out about helmets that they wear nowadays out there in war. Those things, the helmets that they wear on the battlefields now, those things are thick and heavy. Some of them can thwart bullets. You hit that helmet with the bullet will bounce off. Those things are sturdy. I actually had a chance to put one on. It's heavy. But they also said in hand-to-hand combat, that helmet can serve as a weapon. That's how sturdy and hard it is. So make sure you got your helmet of salvation on. No telling when you might need it. Make sure you've got the gospel of peace on your feet. A good soldier clothes himself fully with the armor. So we understand all this as far as putting on garments and different parts of attire and how you can identify people with them. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5, it says, verse 5 says, likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Ye all of you, be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility. For God resisteth the proud, and giveth grace to the humble. Every day, God's looking for humble people. God's looking for humble. And any time that I present myself with self-sufficiency, I've got it all together, the Bible says that God resists me. God becomes my adversary. God can't and God will not bless what I'm doing when I am opposing him. God chooses not to. God blesses his will. God blesses his purpose. Everything that God desires to do, he blesses. But just because I've got the Holy Ghost and I call myself a child of God, that does not obligate God to bless a thing that I do, especially when it's not in line with his will. He said, be clothed with humility. Clothed means to gird, or to engirdle oneself for labors. Figuratively, the apron as being a badge of servitude, to wear in token of mutual deference, or to be clothed with. In Thayer's, it says to knot, to tie, to knot or band by which two things, a tie or knot by a band, by which two things are fastened together, to fasten or gird on oneself. And this is talking about a scarf or an apron that, here we go, you ready? How many of you in here are servants of Jesus Christ? Raise your hand high and proud. How many of you are servants? The rest of you trying to figure out if you want to be servants of Jesus Christ. Okay, great. Awesome. Do you know what that word servant means? We kind of like to put, a nice little word on it or whatever, and, just a servant, somebody who comes and goes and gets something for you and, does some, little task for you and wait on you and all that kind of stuff. And the problem with it is that because of where this world is and all that, some people shy away from it. But it talks about a slave. It talks about somebody that a slave doesn't belong to themselves. A slave belongs to somebody else. For some people, and in the Old Testament, you came to a point where you could choose to either stay with your master or to be set free. And when you stayed with your master, there was a mark that was placed on you. because I choose to stay here. The thing is, in your master's house, whatever was given to you, if you chose to go out from your master's house, if you got married in your master's house but you want to be set free later on, you know what happened? You leave it. You leave it. So you know what men would do? I'm staying here because I've gained some things at my master's house that I would not have possibly may not have gained on my own. Don't be so quick to leave the master's house. Truly, identify yourself. You know what? I don't belong to me. You don't belong to you. We all belong to God. God calls the shots. God tells me when to go out. God tells me when to come back in. God tells me when to get up. God tells me what to do. God tells me what not to do. And then he also uses these people that he places in my life called leaders to show me the ropes and show me what to do and what not to do. Because my life doesn't belong to me. So, what it's talking about, it says, clothe yourself with humility. Put humility on. Put on a garment, not just something on the outside that says, I'm going to pick with Brother Darren back there. I'm a worker with the county here. Let all y'all see what I've got on. You know, when Samuel went to anoint the next king of Israel, he saw the first one, and he said, surely this is the Lord's anointed. The Lord said, that's not him. And the next one and so forth, and wasn't him. And it says, of course, they found David, and it was a man after God's own heart. Humility is not just seen based on who's got the best clothes on, who's the tallest or whatever. It says Saul was head and shoulders above everybody. Saul looked like a good king. Saul represented Israel well. I wonder if Samuel had that same mindset when he went to anoint the next king. I've got to find somebody that possibly looks like Saul, or that can represent God and Israel externally. But God doesn't need somebody that can represent him based on what I've got on, based on how I look, based on just how I carry myself and how society may define me by wealth or anything else. No, God looks at the heart. So when you're clothing yourself, it's about the heart. It's about your motive. It's about why you do what you do. And see, when you walk with God, his motive becomes your motive. His purpose becomes your purpose. His way becomes your way. His will becomes your will. The scripture, I didn't write it down, it just came to mind, but the scripture, it tells us it says, put on bowels of, is it bowels of love? Bowels of mercy. And there's more to it than that. I don't know if you guys can pull it up there in the back. But it says to put on, to put those things on. So that tells me that my nature does not have that. You weren't born walking around humble. You weren't born walking around merciful. You weren't born walking around loving. You might have been cute out of your mother's womb, but somewhere along the line at the age of 2, they deemed it terrible too, something clicked. And that little loving child that used to roam around and love on everybody, something changes. Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind. Humility is not just an action, but it's what I've got on. And I'm going to live and act based on what I've got on. If I've got righteousness on, I can walk around knowing that I'm not righteous by myself, but I'm righteous because of him. If I've got praise on, if I've got the garment of praise on, it doesn't matter what I see going on around me. I've got a garment that reflects who he is. I know who God is. I know what God has done. I know what God will do. And I live based on that. Not based on I get bad news. And yes, you know, sometimes I wish I could be like Job. He said, the Lord hath given, Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. I look forward to that day when whatever comes, I can respond like that. No matter what comes, blessed be the name of the Lord. Why? Because of how I'm walking with God, because of my relationship with God. So we've got to put on humility. We've got to clothe our minds with humility so that we think properly. We would think as Christ thought. Scripture says that he made himself of no reputation and took upon himself the form of a servant. That was his mind. That was his thinking, where he could have come, think about that. You got all power in your hand, all might, and you could come down robed in glory, robed in majesty. And you read about in Revelation and how he's revealing himself and all of that, and think about the majesty that he could have come down with. It goes beyond. Before, I was just thinking, he come in with a nice white horse and, a couple people, a little entourage or whatever. But if he really came in all of his glory, there is no entourage, there is no opening party, nothing that can compare to Jesus' entry. So we often talk about Joseph. Joseph was given a coat of many colors because he was favored by his brother. He was honored. He was distinguished from his brothers. I don't know about you, but I don't know how I would act, but I would just imagine that Joseph walked around just a little proud, a little happy. I've got my father's favor. Above my brothers, I am the favorite of my father. And he got that coat, and his brothers, they could not speak peaceably with him. They did not like him. They did not want to have anything to do with him. The only thing that they wanted to do with him was some of them wanted to kill him. So they strip his coat off, put him in a pit, sell him into slavery. He goes to Potiphar's house, and guess what he gets? A garment of slavery, because he now belongs to somebody else. He doesn't have the garment of favor. Although he found favor in Potiphar's eyes, he didn't have a garment of favor. He had the garment of slavery. However, that outward garment that could be demeaning, that could be humiliating, did not negatively impact what he did. Because I believe that he found somewhere a place where what he did, it says that God was with him in what he did. He found it somewhere to work as to please God. I believe that somewhere throughout that process, he had those dreams that I'm here for a reason. I've got a purpose. And so what I've got on right now, what might seem to tear me down, what might seem to make me nothing and taking me from this place of favor and honor and brought me low, is not going to change what I do. Because from there, Joseph, minding his own business, doing what he knew to do, got accused, falsely accused. And what got left behind? His garment. Potiphar's wife pulled that thing off of him. It was time to get rid of the garment of slavery. See, sometimes we're ready to change garments, and when one garment comes off, we're waiting for the garment of royalty, and God says, hold on, we got to go a little deeper. We're going to go to a deeper place of humility. And what might be humiliation to you is only preparation for what's to come. But see, if we get out of the process of where God's taking us, we'll never ascend to where God wants us to be. So she tore that garment off, and he got the raiment of a prisoner. The Lord was with him in the prison, and I like this part of the account where Joseph interprets these dreams, and he's got his get out of jail free card. I've got my way out. I've got an inside man. I like that. I like going into businesses or whatever and making a connection with somebody. So I like getting free stuff or discounted stuff. There was one pizza place when we were in South Baltimore where I knew I'd go there frequently, and they knew me and I knew them. And every so often, I get me a free pizza. So I like making good connections with people. And he had an inside track. And the butler got all the way back to Pharaoh and forgot. I don't believe the training was done for Joseph. Joseph found a way out, but God didn't find a way out for him just yet. So the day came where Pharaoh has the dreams. The butler remembers. They called Joseph up to interpret the dreams. And when they called Joseph up, it says that he shaves and he changes his garment so that he could be presented to Pharaoh. He comes to Pharaoh, he interprets the dreams, and then he gives Pharaoh the plan, and Pharaoh says, hey, I'm going to make you the number 2 man. Joseph was not done changing clothes, because after that it says that Pharaoh put on him vestures of, I think it said linen. He gave him all that he needed to be a ruler, to ride in the second chariot. Don't let the process that God has you in, that no matter how humbling it may look in your eyes, or no matter how other people might see it, don't let that deter you from God working in your life. Because honestly, God is trying to help all of us to get to the lowest state in our flesh that we can get. If that weren't the case, he would not have said, if anybody would come after me, let him take up his cross daily and follow me. Paul said, I die daily. Each and every day, there is something in my flesh that has got to die. There is something in my flesh that wants to stand up, that wants to stand proud. You go look in the garden of your life, you will always find a weed trying to poke his head up out of the dirt to come out. And God is saying, I'm trying to keep the weeds out of your life. Sometimes I got to go digging in some things. Sometimes I got to tear some things up. God, don't stop digging in my life. God, do whatever you've got to do in my life so that I can be who I need to be and where I need to be. In Philippians 2, I quoted some of it, but it talks about when Jesus came, and he says, Scripture says this, look not every man on his own things. Chapter 2, verse 4 of Philippians, it says, look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Now, that doesn't mean to go being a busybody, or checking out what everybody else has got going on. Now, if they're posting it out there in the cyber world, then do what you got to do. Not being a busybody, but looking out for each other, caring for each other. It says, let this mind be in you, which also was in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. He took upon himself the form of a servant, was made in the likeness of men, and being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. The way that I see it is just how my mind works, of Jesus coming down and becoming a man. I feel like for me, that's like me going into the baby store, buying myself a rattle, some 3-month clothing, little baby swing and carriage, get me a little pacifier, putting all that in my mouth and becoming like a little baby. That's how I see that. Jesus made himself lesser than what he could have. Don't get caught up in trying to make yourself into something more than what God has called you to be. Be all that you can be in God, but don't add to what God is trying to do. Don't try to build yourself up in front of anybody else's eyes. You know what's interesting is that we think at times, we think sometimes that people think certain things about us. And people see certain things in us, but we really have no idea. Unless they tell us, we really have no idea what they think about us. You could go walking down the sidewalk and you could have some clothes that don't match, and you think that everybody's walking past you and looking at you thinking, these clothes don't match. What is this person thinking? We have no idea what people think about us unless they share it. So we can't live a life based on what somebody might or might not think about us. We can't live lives based on what somebody may or may not say about us. Because if I live like that, then I'm always trying to change something to fit what somebody else may or may not think about me. And then you find out they weren't even looking at you, but you changed all of these things. Don't live life based on somebody else. Find out what God thinks about you and how he wants you to live. It's like going out in the Old Testament. If David was worried about what everybody else thought about him and going out there with that sling and all of that, he might have put on Saul's armor and got his head taken off. If Samson was worried about what everybody else thought about him picking up a jawbone and fighting 1,000 Philistines, he might have lost that battle when God wanted to give him victory. Don't fight based on how everybody else is going to fight. Fight how God has called you to fight. Peter whips out a sword. Jesus goes to a cross. Don't fight with what everybody else is going to fight with. Find out what your weapon is and what God has for you in your battle. So as a servant, it says that Jesus, he said he made himself of no reputation. He took upon himself the form of a servant. Basically what he did was he poured out all of his strength, all of his might, all of his ability so that he could become like a man. He poured all of that out. He restrained all of that. He locked all of that away so that he could become like a man. And then he didn't just become like him. He seized. He grabbed a hold of the form of a servant. He put on that garment of service. He put on that garment of slave. And he made a choice. Humility is a choice. Humility is something that we choose. It's not something that's just thrust on us. It's something that we choose. When Elijah went up into heaven, was caught up in the chariot of fire, and that mantle fell down, you better believe that Elisha was going to pick it up and do something with it. So it's almost like each and every day. Now, of course, yeah, I would love that experience. I don't know about you. It's mighty, it's powerful. But humility is not the garment that everybody's going to want to pick up and put on. They say, where is the God of Elijah? And let me put on this garment of humility. I want to do some works and some wonders and powers and all of that. Humility may not be something that is out in front and seen by everybody, and it's not the most recognizable, not the most notable thing in the eyes of mankind. But God looks for the humble. God is drawn to the humble. You want God to be by your side? Put on and clothe yourself with humility. And don't take it off. Keep it on. It said that they fastened that garment on. It wasn't just something that they go pick up. This wasn't some runway of some fashion clothes designer where a guy gets a suit off a rack and goes walking down the runway with this thing slung over their shoulder trying to look good for everybody. No, put that garment on. Keep it on. Well, it doesn't match what I've got on. Well, that means I need to change my character to match what God desires to put on me. It's not my style. Humility isn't flesh's style. Don't worry, it's nobody's style. Put it on. Because when you wear, something's going to change inside of you. It's not just going to be something on the outside, but it's going to be your thinking. It's going to be how you talk, how you act, how you live. That's what's going to change. The conflict is going to come is when you try to put on humility. Try to be humble before God, but try to keep that other nature that I've got it all under. I'm in control. There's always going to be a conflict there. It's going to be this take off, put on, and changing and all of that. You got to put it on and clamp it on, tie it on, knot it on, double knot. Don't do one of those little loose knots where it's going to blow off in the wind. Put it on tight and snug. Basketball coach used to, if we were in practice and if we had a horrible game and things went wrong and guys didn't play well, he'd put stuff out there. He would lay it all out there. And he wouldn't call people out. He would just put it out there. And he said, if the shoe fits, put it on, lace it up, and wear it tight. Well, guess what? If humility is going to fit you, put it on. Pick it up, put it on, lace it up tight, and don't let it go. Don't let anybody take your humility away. Don't change it because of what somebody is or is not doing. For all of you Ravens fans in here, you wouldn't change if a Steelers fan came in here and you liked that Steelers jersey and it looked good. You wouldn't change because you are a Raven for life. But that Steelers fan may not make it out. That Steelers fan might be converted. So stay consistent in your faith. Jesus submitted himself to death. Jesus submitted to death. It says that he submitted himself unto death, even the death of the cross. Sometimes our struggle comes in submission to God, and in humility comes in because of who God uses. We get messed up because sometimes it's the person that's sitting right down on the other end of the pew that's got us rubbed the wrong way, and we're trying to get ourselves in order. Sometimes it's the person sitting next to us. It says that he submitted himself to death, even the death of the cross. Regardless of whomever God uses to help you to become humble, regardless of whose hands are involved, humility is a choice. Submission is a choice. Sometimes God is going to help me to become humble out in the Walmart store. God might help me become humble at 212 East 25th Street. And sometimes, you say, well, if people in the church were really, people take up more issues with the church than there really are. And sometimes that's just an indication of what's going on internally with them. Because in a great house, you're going to have all kinds of vessels. You say, well, I'm not one of those vessels down there. Well, you keep listening to the word, and the Lord might just bring that mirror right front and center and say, you know what? What you thought you were, you're not. We can improve. There's room for improvement. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought to think, but think soberly. Scripture says, he said, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto me. My idea of being lifted up is, hey, let's do something good. Throw me a party. Give me some gifts. Put my name out there. Put it on the news in a good way. Say great things about me. Jesus was lifted up in front of all of Israel. It was not a pretty sight. You see, Jesus wasn't worried about getting an approval rating from the people. He was more concerned about their salvation, and not just them, but those to come. It's awesome how much he loves everybody, or at least he desires to love everybody, even those that don't even know him. He's desiring to love them. And Jesus he came as a servant, right? And John 13, it talks about him. He had a supper with his disciples. And afterward, he laid aside his garment. And he put a towel around him. He girded himself up to wash his disciples' feet. How many of you have been around where we've done some foot washing? Don't worry, you can raise your hand. We're not about to wash feet. It's 2020. We're not there yet right now. We're not about to wash feet. It's like those services, foot washing and communion. They start talking about that, and you see the guys start marching in with pans, basins, and crackers and grape juice, and it's foot washing time. Hope you scrubbed real good before church. He got down to wash their feet. And that was custom. That was customary for that time. When somebody came into the house, to your house, you had a servant that came and washed that traveler's feet. And Jesus got down after eating and washed his disciples' feet. All of their feet. Peter, he said, well, if you're going to wash my feet, take it all. Come on. Well, yeah, first he said, you'll never wash my feet. He said, if I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. He said, Lord, not my feet only, also my hands and my head. Come on, Lord. Pour it on. I mean, look, if you're going to get down there and be the servant, let's do the whole thing. He got down, Jesus, he got down there and he washed their feet. What was he telling them? He was saying that I am not greater than you. And I am showing you this. I am going to be your example. Sometimes we think our teaching is only going to come from behind a pulpit or just somebody communicating from the Word of God. We also have examples that the Lord has given us. But sometimes our minds are somewhere else and looking at other things to pick up the examples that are placed before us. He said, I'm giving you example. Later on, he told them that you should love one another as I have loved you. He said that you should wash each other's feet. Before that, there was a debate of who was going to be the greatest in the kingdom. Who was going to sit where? It doesn't matter where you're going to sit. I don't care if you sit on the platform, if you sit on the back row, if you sit on the floor, or sit on the street. God doesn't have a hierarchy for us that we should measure ourselves by in his kingdom. But he said that you should be servants to one another. Look out for not fighting ministry against ministry. Not fighting my works against your works. Not fighting my prayer against your prayer. Could y'all imagine having two people in here dueling it out in prayer? You got one person praying in the King James, one person praying in the Message Bible. Somebody speaking tongues fluently. The other person, they trying to, they going to work. God didn't call us to be in competition, but to prefer our brother and our sister. And we're supposed to be clothed with that. We're supposed to put that garment on. Let that garment shape us. Let that garment become what our mindset, where our heart is, how we act towards each other, how we treat each other. You can find several times that you go out on evangelism, some people that are easy to reach are those that don't have a lot. People that are at the end of their rope. People that don't have anything going for them. Some of those people, they come in here, they're so empty and wanting to be filled with something. And it's easy sometimes to win them, to pray them through, and to get them walking with God. You also have challenging people out there who've got it all together. You got the wealthy. You got people that don't have a care in the world. But true humility, I believe, comes in prayer. Not just extending an invitation to somewhere for somebody. Because if I am truly humble before God, I don't stop with just inviting somebody to something or telling somebody about God, regardless if they've got it all together or not. You see, it's easier to keep somebody who has nothing at the forefront because they keep coming back wanting to be filled. But what about that person that has it all together, that doesn't need anything, but you know they don't have it all together? You see, sometimes we stop with, well, they don't want anything. They close the door, so there's nothing more that God can do. No, God says that there's a whole lot more than I could do. I just need somebody to stand in the gap. I need somebody to present themselves and to fight for them, to pray for them. God didn't call us just to fill up a building. God didn't call us just to He called us to reach the lost and all that, but not just to bring people in. But a lot of what God has called us to do doesn't happen out in front where everybody sees it. There's a lot of prayer that takes place behind closed doors. And we've done an awesome and phenomenal job with evangelism and reaching out and all of that. But that is not the climax of what God desires to do. I believe at times that God does more through our prayers than sometimes me physically being out there in the streets or knocking on somebody's door. And I believe that we can certainly, we spend more time praying than we do doing that. So if in closing, if I could say this, regardless of the vessel, don't approach the vessel looking at the outside. Do like God does. And if you can't see the heart, ask God to allow you to see what he sees, to feel what you feel. Pray for God's burden. Take on his yoke. It's easy, and come under his burden. Because under his burden, we can walk under that. We can live in humility under his burden. Amen.